Welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. If you are new to our channel, make sure you are subscribing, smash a like. Let's go big on the likes. Let's go 1.1k on the likes, and comment your thoughts in the comment section down below. Villa v Nottingham Forest at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. Me and Hannah off air have just been trying to think when the last 3 o'clock was, and we haven't got to the bottom of that conversation. So I think it may have been Crystal Palace, but we are unaware of when it was. But that shows how long ago it probably was. So yeah, 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday. It's going to feel a bit weird playing on a 3 o'clock kickoff, but all good. So yeah, Villa Forest, really looking forward to it. Still buzzing from the weekend. Hannah, how are you, and how are you feeling about Villa? Thoughts from the weekend and looking ahead to Forest?
I am very well, thank you. Happy to be back on after a little time away. I didn't really catch much of the Fulham game, to be fair. So I caught a bit of the second half, which probably was the bit that actually didn't reflect so favourably on how Villa performed across the whole game. But from the bits I've seen and from reading and listening to what other people have said post match, it seems like it was a really good sort of rebound from the last three games where we look to have struggled a little bit. I think what we really needed in the run up to this kind of February March period was a run of form, a run of performances, and it looks like we were really creative against Fulham. We were able to kind of reignite some of the free flowing football that has been so recognisable under Unai Emery. Obviously, a massive boost to have Powell back, and even the fact that we hadn't played that centre back pairing before. It looks like they, for the most part, despite conceding a goal, managed really well, which is a massive positive considering how concerned we've been about our defensive injury situation. So I think we come away from it really, really positive. We've got a striker that is in the form of his life, really. Really enjoying the absolute best of Ollie Watkins at the minute. And, despite, a lot of negative injury news, which, we know a lot of teams have had this season, we can feel quite positive, I think, now going into this next run of fixtures. We're back in the top four. We've got a little bit of a buffer on Spurs and United. So with favourable fixtures coming up, with Forest, Luton, a big game against Spurs, it's probably, I think, the biggest run-in of our season so far. We've seen that this team can come back from a bad run of form. We did it last season and then went on a great run. So I'm hoping that we can kind of emulate that again now. And if we can get through the next 4 games, I'd say, and pick up points, I'd say we don't want to lose any of them, then we have a really good chance of top 4. And that's exactly where we want to be. We want to stay consistent in that conversation until the end of the season. We can't really now afford the same drop off where we lose a run of games again, because it is just so competitive for that top 4. So I think I feel really positive after that Fulham game. It was the boost we needed, and especially when you go away from home, it's always, quite sweet to come away with a victory. And Fulham aren't an easy team to beat. I think we've probably touched on previous episodes that they've had some good results at Craven Cottage this season, so we can't underestimate that Fulham are a decent Premier League side at the minute. So hopefully it's given the boys a bit more confidence again, and we go into a nice 3 o'clock home fixture this weekend, which is a treat and should hopefully again pull something out the bag, because we've gone from winning every week at Villa Park to a little bit of a dip. So it'd be nice to get that back again.
Yeah, love it. I've really been sort of manifesting positive vibes. I'm going to sleep with that Champions League anthem on. I'm looking at the trophy. I'm just looking at it every time. I'm manifesting that Champions League trophy, and just positive vibes. I think you've got to bring it. We've got to be. I think what we've got to do is we've got to enjoy this next running. We've got to really sort of just embrace it and just just ride it and just go with it and go with the flow. And, again, like, I was buzzing after the Fulham game because so many things happened that pleased me that sort of like didn't sort of, I wasn't like thinking negative things about the way we were going, but certain things happened that made me think, oh, do you know what? We're fine here. Like, we can hold our own in this running. And Ollie Watkins, absolutely clinical. We've got a striker that's banging form going into the last 13, 14 games, however many games we've got left. He's got 13 Premier League goals, 10 assists. If he can get to 20 goals, we'll be right there. We'll be right there in them Champions League places because, if he's knocking on 20 goals, he's got to get another 7. Then I think we'll be doing really, really well there. Pau Torres coming back. It's sort of like we knew the importance of Pau, but when you see him back in the flesh and you see him play, and, on the debrief, me and Justin did that sort of debrief of the goal, and then Villa dropped like the build-up before the actual build-up to the goal, and it was like liquid Unai Emery football. It was to the left. Everybody was getting barged off the ball. We were still keeping it. We sort of went to the right, didn't happen, went back to the left, went back down the middle, and just brilliant, just really, really good. And I'm absolutely loving it, and I'm embracing it and can't wait for this next running. Justin, how are you feeling heading into the weekend?
Excited. I've just done a bit of research while you've been talking. There's only been 2 home 3 o'clock kickoffs this season. And you got one right, Palace, but the last one was Burnley at home on the 30th of December, so last year. So this is only be the 3rd 3 o'clock Premier League game on a Saturday at home this whole season, which is mad. But yes, really looking forward to this game. I think it's a massive opportunity. As we said before the Fulham game, these 3 games after that, a little bit of a ropey spell, really give us a massive opportunity now to put 3 wins on the board. That's what I want out of them going into what is an absolutely huge game against Spurs then coming up after that. And then put us in a really good position then for that last 10-game running. So I'm just hoping that that's what's going to manifest itself at the weekend.
Can't wait for it. Can't wait for it. Right, so my good friend Wolfie from Forest Fan TV, we talk quite a bit, me and Wolfie. We got a little connection going. Midland vibes, 2 giants, really. Both sponsored by SofaScore, so we got that little connection going as well. He's gave me some inside info, and the one thing that he told me that stuck with me is that Murillo is the best centre-back in the Premier League. So I just thought like I'd just give his honest vibes that Murillo, that's what he said. I did laugh at him when he did say that. So Forest, I think that they are doing better now. They are a team that I think are still in sort of new manager transition vibes. I think they are doing some things really well that you're starting to see from Nuno, some of his ideas coming in. I think they're far from the finished article, but what I have seen from them and the progress that I think that they are making, they've had a couple of disappointing results barring the West Ham one, but I think some of the attacking football that they're playing now, counter-attacking they are, looks really good and looks really promising for them. So I think in that aspect, I think they're going to be fine under Nuno. I think he's going to sort of just get them more attacking, basically. I think that's probably one of the biggest frustration from Forest fans is that, that sort of low block football sometimes that Cooper was playing was a little bit sort of like Groundhog Day every week. And I think, although sometimes he was getting results, I think, any team that once you get in the Premier League, once you survive that first season, you want to see a bit of progress, and I think you don't want to just see that your team's stuck down the bottom of the Premier League and you're scrapping away, because we know eventually if you're down there for too long, you'll end up going one direction. So I think early signs from Nuno are pretty good. So if we just have a little look at how they're currently setting up in a minute then. So it's a 4-2-3-1 in essence. They've got 2 holding players, Dominguez and Danilo. I've been told that the AFCON boys are all back and going to be involved, so they're probably going to be making the match day squad. Two wingers that are very attacking, very dynamic, very pacey, offer a big threat for Forest in Hudson-Odoi and Elanga. Hudson-Odoi and Tavares have got good link-up play as well, so they're getting the overlaps with Williams and Tavares. Gibbs-White, anyone that knows me knows that I massively rate Gibbs-White. I think he's unbelievable. I think his passing range is good. I think he's got that sort of sense of that pace on the ball. You know what Jack had? That sort of like the pace on the pass that would always just be right, and it would always set up either the cross or the shot for the opposition, for the player. So I think he's got that in his game. I don't think he's having as good a season as he had last year. I think Johnson was a big part of them. They had a big combination going, especially on that right-hand side. But I think he's in a bit of a different role now, a side that's been struggling for large parts of the season. But I think, him getting in these areas, sort of getting on the edge of sort of the box for cutbacks and stuff. Taiwo, he's a really good striker. Hold-up play is really good. He's a really good finisher. He's a big player for them as well. So I think it's going to be, a difficult game. We know where their threat is. We know where their threat was from the first game. We saw that with our high line. Wolf is told me that they're not going to sort of sit in a low block, so that's probably going to play into Villa's hands a little bit. The fact that they're going to come on to us a little bit more, they're going to be a little bit more attacking. There'll be space opening up a little bit. New keeper Sells as well. I think he's doing okay. So good team, but I think Villa should be looking at this to get all 3 points. Hannah, Forest, thoughts ahead of the game then? What are you expecting? How are you expecting Villa to play?
I think looking back to earlier this season when we were coming up against Forest in the reverse fixture, they were probably a slightly different proposition. Obviously, they were under different management at the time, but we probably did underestimate them a little bit and ended up getting beat. So I'm under no illusion that we should do the same thing again. But I do think that we, on the field on the day, have enough to beat this Forest side. However, I think they're in decent form. Obviously, I don't watch too much of Forest, but I think they had a good result against West Ham and have picked up points recently. And considering at one point they were probably quite close to the drop, they're starting, I think, to bridge that gap a little bit now. So they will be probably coming to Villa Park not confident, but feeling like they can get something against us, especially if they've looked at our last few home games across all competitions. But I think we'll probably play a pretty similar team to what we did against Fulham. Obviously, you'll probably come on to this in a predicted lineup episode, but we'll really want to stop that counter attack that I think really punished us when we were playing away from home. And obviously, with them being the away team this side, they will likely change their approach as well. I think what's really important for us is that we have our attackers in good form on the day. We should have beat Man United with the amount of chances we had, so we know that we're going to create. It's whether we can test their back line enough. No defender at the minute is going to want to come up against Ollie Watkins or even the likes of Leon Bailey. So I think we'll get chances. It's just making sure we capitalise on them, being clinical. We've really seen the importance, I think, in this Villa team of trying to move the ball quickly. I think we sometimes get stuck in a little bit of a rut in games where if we don't get ahead relatively quickly, things seem to turn quite slow and we're a bit rigid. And I think we saw at the weekend how football is a simple game. Sometimes we really just have to get the basics right, and passing the ball across, like you mentioned, Luke, switching it up just to keep things fresh rather than really staying rigid and just playing it from Moreno to Ramsey and then back to Moreno, and we just get stuck. So I think that the Villa we want to see is a lot of what we saw at the weekend against Fulham, which obviously is easier said than done. It's a complete new game, but I do think that we can beat this Forest team, and hopefully, Emery's giving them the incentives now. Every game is, we need to hold on to this place, because if we don't win, like he always says, there are teams below us that will win and will knock us out of that fourth position. So there's got to be that incentive, and I think a lot of the time now it seems like these players quite like the bounce back, or when something goes against us, like with Boubacar's injury and things like that, they seem to react quite well. So hopefully we can continue that. But I do think, as much as Forest pose a threat, and they do have actually some really good attackers, like you say, I rate Gibbs White. I think Hudson-Odoi is a good player. I just think that on the day, should we play how we can, we do have enough to beat them this weekend.
One word Unai will be after for this game, and I'm going to put it out there now: control. If Aston Villa control this game, we win the game. And that goes from sort of keeping our heads, sort of, if it gets a bit basketball, taking that away from the game. I think he'll just want a full controlled 90-plus minute performance and just dictate play, territorial advantage, take our time, and I think we'll be fine. I think that the offside trap, from opposition pundits, fans, is still a bit of a myth. It's not actually that high anymore. It wasn't that high against Fulham. So I think that myth needs to be squashed. So I'm just going to show you now some of the advantages, well, the good things and bad things about Forest, and then we'll get into Justin's thoughts. So the threat comes from out wide with Nottingham Forest especially. You've got Gibbs White that breaks his neck to get in the box as well. So their big threat comes from these wide areas time and time again. I've got screen grabs from the game against West Ham and the game against Newcastle. Game against Newcastle, those 1v1 situations are something that we definitely want to avoid at all costs, because Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, they've got pace to burn. 1v1 always sort of an advantage to an attacker at times, because the ball's at their feet, basically. They've got pace, etc. So those wide areas especially, you can see on the opposite side, Dan Burn definitely now been found out for Newcastle. I mean, he's in dire form at the minute, Dan Burn. And, I mean, even looking at that, looks a struggle for Dan Burn already.
Yeah.
So,
like a number 7 bus on the turn, isn't it?
Yeah. Elanga's got Dan Burn here on absolute toast. But then the other threat comes from a little bit like Jacob Ramsey, that he's different to Gibbs White. But, I think when you get Gibbs White with his head up that's driving, like I say, he can split that pass through there perfectly for Elanga to run onto. So those are the big threats. But like what I've just said, control, stopping Nottingham Forest from getting into these areas where on transition they're able to counter Villa, and our shape isn't set as much. So it's important that our shape is just completely solid against Nottingham Forest, and we don't get stretched. Here again, Gibbs White, edge of the 18-yard box. That's an area that he likes to pick up on. So we've got to make sure that we cut that passing lane out. We're aware of Gibbs White's movement, especially in attacking areas. This goal against West Ham was absolutely awful defending from him. He's completely the wrong side of him, and he just allows Taiwo to just easily turn. And it's a great finish, but that centre back there, his position there is all wrong. But one area that Nottingham Forest are struggling with massively at the moment are corners and set pieces, organisation. That second ball, that second chance to react is something that they are really struggling with. And you get that with sort of teams that you've got a new manager. It's like new manager comes in, he sorts out the attack. Then sometimes the goals creep in a little bit. Then they sort of sort out the defence, and then it's finding that balance. And I think this is one area that they are struggling with. I think they've brought in a set piece coach now. I'm sure they've brought in a set piece coach, but I think that's still sort of in its sort of infancy. But I think that's an area that McPhee can really be looking at to work on. I think short corners are the way that Villa will go in this game, because by taking short corners, mixing it up a little bit, it sort of drags players out of position. Then they're having to react to, Villa's creativity. And I think you can see from this one, I think this was the Guimaraes goal where he sort of just peels off that back post there. So yeah, I think this is an area that they're really struggling with. Second balls going into areas as well, a little bit static. So I think that's an area that Villa will definitely look to try and exploit. And we are quite creative on them as well. I think sometimes we can get a bit unlucky with them where we get close to scoring with these creative ones, but they don't quite work out. And you're like, if that worked out, McPhee is a genius, but sometimes it's like, that'd have been a great one, and etc. So I think we'll get creative there. So those are a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight for you to pick up on. So Justin, thoughts going into it then?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, the Nuno, we know about Nuno from his Wolves days. He likes a solid base. He likes to be fairly expansive the way he attacks the team. So I don't think we'll see anything different with that. So he likes this, two solid centre halves, two solid number sixes. Nicolas Dominguez, who plays the Argentinian international, plays just in front of the back four. I think he's been really good from this season. I will also say, Luke, this is not, you haven't told me to say this, but I've been on the SofaScore app and it is incredible for stats and information. I've just been hoovering up the stuff off there today. But yeah, so I think he's key. And it's interesting that they've managed to really recruit well, but I suppose when you buy 400 players, you're going to get one or two right every now and again, aren't you? So, but Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, if you'd have said 2 or 3 years ago when that, Elanga broke through at Man United, looked a real prospect, Hudson-Odoi at Chelsea, if you'd have said they're going to be playing at no disrespect to Forest, then you'd have said, well, what's happened to them? But I think they've sort of found a home now there, and somebody that with Nuno that will, with Gibbs White also in the 10, that they're a real threat in that area. And that's really they're using the defensive solidity, what they've got, and then those three sort of in behind what is a decent Awoni up top striker. They are going to cause us, I don't think they're going to come and sit back. They will cause us problems. But for me, Saturday, key two players for me, Ramsey and Tielemans. I say that because the 6 that I highlighted the other day, who I expect are our current star men, we love them to bits. They're going to be mainstays of this team. But I think we expect 7 or 8 out of 10 out of them every week now, and that's generally what we're getting. So the players that are filling in around them, if we can get really good performances out of them, and like we said after Fulham, that we did have a much better performance out of Ramsey. He looks like he's getting back to his levels. And with McGinn now sitting in the 6, Tielemans now got that freedom to do the McGinn role and be that little link man and be the man that can sit in the hole and link everything together like we saw with the Watkins second goal. So if those two can really have a good game, added to the other 6 that are just, quality, then I don't see many teams living with us. I still don't see many teams living with us, especially the likes of, no disrespect, Forest. And we definitely owe them one, City Ground. That was one of the most disappointing results of the season so far. We really come a cropper there. So bearing in mind what's on this game and the importance of it, what we've come off the back of with 3 defeats at home, Saturday, 3 o'clock kickoff, full sold-out Villa Park, I just think we're going to beat them.
Me too. Right, I've got a couple more stats for you before we round off. We're going to go to SofaScore, the best football app going, quickest football app for live scores as well. And you can have this at your fingertips. So download it for free. The link is in the description. It's absolutely amazing. So basically, that I like a 7 rating on SofaScore. So Nottingham Forest, they've got a 6.85. They have scored 32 goals this season, scored 44. They've got 1.3 goals scored per game. But this is what I like about SofaScore as well. So like 4 clean sheets, ball possession, they're averaging 40.5, a passing accuracy of 77.9. But you can go down here now and you can see their top players. So their top players, you've got, like Justin mentioned, Dominguez, a 7.06, Gibbs White, a 7.11, Hudson-Odoi, 7.01, Elanga, 7.01 as well. But what you can do as well, So you can go on their goal scorers. So you can see that Chris Wood, he's currently out. He's got 8 goals. Taiwo's got 6 goals. You can go on assists. They've got Langa's got 7. Gibb White's got 4. So you've got all this at your fingertips. You can see XG, free kick goals, scoring frequency. You can also click on the player as well. So you can go on their player profile, and their player profile will bring up all their stats on the player as well. So really, really good stuff. Great app, and I absolutely love it. Right, so finally, like we always do, let's just have a little look at some of the head-to-head then. So Villa's head-to-head record is pretty good against Forest in the Premier League era. 4 home wins, and they've got 1 away victory. Recent meetings, Justin said that 2-0 loss was very disappointing. 2-0 victory for Villa last season. We are currently 4th. Forest are 15th. We're scoring 2.1 per game. They're scoring 1.3. They're conceding 1.8. We're conceding 1.3. Form guide, a little bit misleading for Forest, because I think a couple of those games, especially Newcastle, they played pretty well in that game as well. So Villa's form, it's okay. 7 points from five games played, so it's not the worst from Villa. We've got the styles here, so you can see the team styles. You've got Forest, who are in the fast and direct, but they are sort of edging more towards more passing sequences than, say, a Luton or an Everton. And Villa are in that sort of, we're edging towards more slow and intricate, which I think will lead into possession-based football. So that was Forest's lineup against West Ham, which you saw on my graphic on the tactical pad. You've got their average positions as well, which will show a 4-2-3-1 with Gibbs White just playing a little bit further advanced in this average position against West Ham. They attacked predominantly down the centre against West Ham. You can see their passing network, quite a lot of triangles with Dominguez, Elanga and Williams. You've got Tavares, Hudson-Odoi and Danilo. So the network was pretty good against West Ham. This was the West Ham passing network against Forest as well, which is not too bad either, to be fair. They're struggling for goals as well, with Antonio leading the line. This is Nottingham Forest's territorial advantage per game now. So you can see the red is where the opposition are dominating the games against Forest. The grey are contested, and the blue are where Forest are comfortable with the ball. So with Aston Villa's possession-based football, I would imagine that will look something similar at the weekend. So,
no, sorry, does that mean that they love corners, because they're both of the corner flags?
Well, they've got wingers in there, so wingers that'll get to the byline.
That's
got
right in the corner,
fullbacks.
So they're comfortable when they've got corners. Well,
and a goal kick, to be fair. I mean, I'd imagine Villa are going to dominate this game with possession. We know where Forest's threat's going to come from. Counter-attacking football, very fast, very direct. So when I'm saying control the game, this is why. And then we've got Aston Villa's, again, you can see the blue where Villa are controlling the game with the football. So build up to the halfway line. It's a little bit more contested. Just after the halfway line, the red is where the opposition against Villa are having all of the ball as well. So, the grey are contested, which is kind of pretty decent, to be fair. It's like either or. I think it's either or, depending on Pacific sort of opposition that we're coming up against. So those are my stats and everything that I've got to say. So, I think that's pretty much done and dusted. 28 minutes. That's the match preview. So we'll go to score predictions then. Hannah, you can go first. What are you going with?
I'm going big. We're going to win 3-0.
Love it. Love it. Well, to be fair, I've gone with the same. I'm going 3-0 as well. I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win. That's all I'm saying. Justin, what are you going with?
Who am I to argue with you two? Lovely people. 3 of us on the predicted match prediction. 3-0 Villa. Let's go for the 3.
Right. Love it. Can't wait for it. Buzzing to be back at Villa Park. Week's content has started then. We're going to have sort of predicted lineup, opposition preview with my mate Wolfie. We have then got press conference reaction. I'll probably do something for the European draw as well on Friday. But then we got fan cams. Fan cams are going off at the minute. You know, they're popping off on everything, popping off on TikTok, popping off on YouTube. Loads of different people are now coming, which is really, really good. So, you know, if you do want to sort of get involved with the channel a little bit and sort of grow into the channel a little bit, I'd probably say fan cams are the easiest way to do so, because you can just meet us, say your stuff, keep coming on regularly, and then see where it goes from there. So if you want to come on, that's great. All the little kids that come on, they're all welcome as well. I think it's good for some of the little kids to come on at times, because, you know, they love football, and some kids really want to get into like media and stuff like that. And it's a really good little platform for them to get confidence and talk about football. So yeah, more the merrier. And then we'll have all of our debrief, etc., over the weekend. So yeah, cheers everyone. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.